Alright, so this is a little bit of a first view of my amplifier that I've got going. I've got it hooked up to my KX3. Right now I'm at on 80 meters. This is a 10 through 80 meter amplifier, and right now I've got it talking between the KX3 and the amplifier. So if I change bands, so there's band up, band down, power and SWR, so I can either be in power meter or SWR meter. So if it's on, it's in power mode. If it's off, it's in S meter mode. It's kind of a ghetto Sharpie mode right now, and then there's auto tune. So if I press the button, it'll start tuning regardless of whether or not there's any power going through, so it'll probably end up finding no good match or anything, or kind of a screwy match. But if I band up or band down, it'll automatically talk back and forth. On the serial console on the computer, you can see the current debug of what's going on. So every time I switch, it's actually showing the actual band that's going. So band 9 is 10 meters, band 7 is 15 meters. That's 80 meters for band 1. Band 0 is 160 meters, but because I don't support it, I don't let it switch between that. And I have 160 meters turned off in the band map on my KX3. Let's see, so 40 meters and 20 meters. Anyway, I'm not on the work bands. I don't have the antenna for it. You could theoretically change the Arduino code. This is all running in an Arduino environment, actually. So it's actually a custom Arduino Leonardo. Let's see. So let's go to 80 meters. So I have a 40 meter vertical. It generally is not very happy on 80 meters, but it can tune up. So one of the things I can do is, now one of the other features, because the two talk to each other, and one of the things you saw on the serial console was the power level. I can change the power level here, so it's now reading at 0.7 watts. It's hard for me to turn this because I've got kind of short cables between everything. 0.7 watts into the amplifier equals 50 watts out. It's actually got a lot of gain, and you don't want to overdrive it because otherwise you're going to get a lot of IMD. So the amplifier is interjecting commands into the serial stream and reading the responses to know what power level the KX3 is at. So if I quickly turn the power up to 1.4 or try and go above, it automatically turns the power back down to 0.8 watts, just so that it doesn't over limit. The problem with this is that sometimes when I want to tune an antenna, you need a little bit more than 1 watt for the SWR bridge to really get a good reading. So sometimes when I tune this thing up, I got to unplug the serial connection because I want to specifically go to, say, 1.2 watts, and then I'm in 80 meters, so I'm going to turn it into tune mode. So now it's in tune, and we get it tuning. And 1.381. Turn off the tune, plug in the serial cable again. Oh, and I really shouldn't have done that because I was probably just transmitting. Oops. Oh well. Usually I also, no, I forgot. I did unplug the push to talk, which is the key or transmit. So it actually was not transmitting. It was just passing through and tuning the amplifier itself. So now, if I want to, I can actually transmit. And it's switching. It's not a QSK switch, it's a relay switch, but I really don't care about QSK that much, so I'm not too worried about it. So it's in power mode, so it's just maxing out the power meter, and then it's in SWR mode. There's a little bit of a glitch here where you can see it starts up and it gets out to about this point, which this LED here I think I programmed as greater than 1.5 to 1, but less than 2 to 1. But then there's some weird code in there that's making it max out at the end of a transmit cycle because the power is too low or something like that. So I need to fix that, but not too big a deal. The whole thing is running off a 4S battery. This is a 5 amp hour battery from Turnigy. It's about a 16 volt output typically, and that'll produce 50 watts on this particular system. So it's designed for something other than a 12 volt battery, but I've got the KX3 running off of my Astron power supply, but the amplifier itself is actually running off the battery because it needs 16 volts. It'll transmit with 12, but it just won't do as much power. And with, AA batteries internally, you can run forever and a day. So it's really designed for portable use. The amplifier has a Arduino Leonardo, as I mentioned, so there is actually a USB cable, so I'm actually going to make sure that I don't accidentally transmit here. So turn off or disconnect the push-to-talk cable. There's really no good switch. What I really should have done is put like a little switch on the back here to put this thing in standby mode. But I don't have anything like that, so I'm just kind of SOL. If I take the battery out of line, I'm going to disconnect the KX3 just so I can show the amplifier itself. So the amplifier itself really has a pretty simplified back panel. It has an RF output. An RF input is just an MCX. So I have a little short BNC to MCX. This goes from the KX3 to the amplifier itself. So the main deck of the amplifier is the input, the push-to-talk, and the actual power input. And then the second deck of the amplifier down here is actually the tuner, through which I pass the serial connection that goes through a connector back here, and then to and then there's a USB connector here for just a standard single USB port. So what I can do is I can talk to the amp and the KX3 through one USB port. And I did this because the idea was to get something like a Raspberry Pi or something else. This is still a project in progress, but this is a Pi 0W that you can take one USB port off of this, a 3S battery pack, and probably run this little Pi 0 for probably about 30 hours or something like that. So, yeah, so it's designed for a single USB port computer. I have another laptop that from HP that'll last 8 hours on a battery charge, but it only has one USB port, so that's kind of the other reason behind that. The nice thing about the Pi 0W, though, is it has Bluetooth and it also has wireless, so you can get the Ethernet connection or wireless connection and a Bluetooth keyboard for actually running the keyboard, and then I just need to get a console program running in there for doing a logger. So that whole thing is then, projects to come up. I then also have a 60 amp hour 4S 3P battery this thing could probably power the whole entire system for probably about 40 hours continuous. It probably weighs about 12 pounds or so. This is actually out of a motorcycle battery, electric motorcycle battery, surplus from a buddy of mine. So anyway, that's the overview of the amplifier, and hope you like it. Thank you.